Good afternoon, everybody. And it is Mrs. Stern here with Pasco eSchool. And we are here today with Anthony Berger, and he is the National Director of the Cub Scouts. Today, Anthony was born in Miami, Florida, and grew up in Fort Myers. He attended Florida State University and earned a degree in math education. He started working with the Boy Scouts of America in 1997 in Naples, Florida, went on to work in Orlando, followed by Columbus, Georgia, before being named the National Director of the Cub Scouting in August of 2017. His current responsibilities include development of program requirements for Cub Scouting, grades K through 5, that serves 1.2 million boys, and is responsible for developing and implementing the new policy that many of us have heard about, allowing girls to become Cub Scouts in 2018. If you have any questions, please text your name and your questions to 813-330-0176. And with that, I give you Anthony.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this event. I'm coming from live from Irving, Texas, which is the headquarters of the National Service Center for the Boy Scouts of America. And so I'm going to do kind of two parts of this session. One, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of my own personal experience and background as far as education and how I got to the career choice that I made. And then we can talk more specifics about my current responsibilities as the National Director of Cub Scouting. So to begin with, I started, I was what was once called a latchkey kid. And for some of you may not know what that is. That was, my mom was a single parent. I was raised in South Miami with my older sister and my mom, who was a secretary to a elementary school principal. Throughout that time, she made sure that I was in Cub Scouts by serving as a volunteer, be a den leader, which is the small group of boys in the neighborhood. And then throughout my life, as we moved from Miami to Fort Myers, she kept me in the program all the way through becoming an Eagle Scout. My neighborhoods that I grew up in, I kind of had two sets of friends. I had friends in the neighborhood, and then I had friends that were in Scouts. And the big difference was the friends that were in Scouts, the question was, what college are you going to go to and what career are you going to have, compared to the my neighborhood friends. Those weren't the type of conversations we were having. So throughout my scouting experiences, I was asked to serve on a summer camp staff 1 year. And during that time, I learned that there was actually a career in the Boy Scouts of America. And so from that point forward, I actually would meet with people who were in positions with the Boy Scouts of America professionally and ask them questions. I would ask them things like, what do you like about your job? What do you not like about it? What are the things that you think make you successful? So I could really get a better understanding of what type of career that would be to see if that would be a good match for myself. And then after attending Florida State University and earning a degree in math education, I decided that the opportunity was for me to go back to my hometown of Fort Myers, where I grew up, and actually serve in the starting role in our career, which is called a district executive. And that's the entry-level position with the Boy Scouts of America. I loved it ever since. So, there's a difference between working for a not-for-profit and for-profit company. And when you work for a not-for-profit company, that doesn't mean that the company doesn't make any money. What it means is that their goal is something other than financial. So in the Boy Scouts of America, we have a mission, and that is our goal as a business, is to fulfill our mission, which is to instill values that are found in the Scout Oath and Scout Law to the youth of America. Where if you were working for a company, the company, no matter what you were selling, if you were selling a widget, an item, a toy, or providing a service, such as a skill set like an accountant, the bottom line is to make money. And so the difference there is quite stark, where when you're in a mission-driven organization, to me personally, it's much more fulfilling. If I do a good job, I'm really having a huge impact on now in my current position in America. When I first started, if I did my job right, I was having a huge impact in my local community. And that really makes all the difference in the world, because no matter what career you choose, you're going to have a bad day. You're going to have a bad week. You're going to have a time where you really question whether you want to continue to do this. And it's those moments where if you look back and think about why you're doing what you're doing, and if the end result is that you're helping to improve the lives of young people, for me, that's a big difference compared to if I was doing something just for the sake of making more money. So that's kind of how I ended up in the career that I did and the choices that I made. Love to see if there's any questions at this time about not-for-profit in general, or working for the Boy Scouts. I don't hear your audio if you're asking me a question.
I muted myself. Sorry about that. If you have any questions, 813-330-0176. Please text your name to that number with your question, and we will get it out there. We do have one question, and that question is, what is your day like? How do you, from the point you get up and get to work, how does your typical day go?
That's one of the things I love about this career. And as I talk to other folks who are in not-for-profit organizations like Boys and Girls Club or YMCA, you do not have a typical day. Every day is different. And so I can give you an example of what my current responsibilities look like. I arrive at the office usually around 8:30 Central Time, and conduct a lot of meetings and coordinating with different departments. So with a national organization, we're serving 1.8 million youth total, a little bit more than that. There's a lot of coordination that's required. We have we have a fingerprint in every community, and that takes a lot of coordination. So meeting with folks who are marketing specialists, people who are computer specialists, looking at our software programs that we have to support our infrastructures. So I do a lot of meetings, but the one great thing about the Boy Scouts is that we are a volunteer-led, professionally guided movement. So for every one paid employee, there are 3,000 adult volunteers in the organization. So I have a committee of volunteers for Cub Scouting that help decide and develop program. And currently, a big part of what I'm doing is the Cub Scout handbooks. We are rewriting. We're not changing requirements, but we're rewriting so that all the references aren't to boys, but rather to non-gender specific, so that when girls are part of the Cub Scout program, they feel that, yes, this program is for them. Also included in that process is taking new photos, so that we have in the handbooks, we have photos of boys in Cub Scouts and girls in Cub Scouts. And so let's say, I think we started that just 2 days ago. We had some in-studio shots of girls in Cub Scout uniform, demonstrating how to do the Cub Scout sign and how to wear the uniform. So it's a very historic and exciting time. So my day is not typical. It's more project led. So we've got projects that we work on, and that could change day to day.
Sounds it. It's a very exciting time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we don't have any questions quite yet.
Right.
813-330-0176. We have lots of people watching, so hopefully we will get some questions.
Sure. So I guess people are probably less interested in my career choices and personal path than they are perhaps the topic of the day, which is the decision to allow girls to become Cub Scouts in 2018. And then in 2019, we'll be launching the ability for girls to earn Eagle Scout in the scouting program as well. So it all starts with simply the fact that this is not something that a decision that was made quickly or in a bubble. The Cub Scout program has always been a family program, which meant that when a Cub Scout went camping, he went camping with his whole family. So that meant mom and dad, aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters were welcome to come. And over the decades, what has happened is the little sisters who have been tagging along have been getting more and more involved. And as we started looking at our Cub Scout programs that are really the most successful, those that are serving 40 to 50 or even 100 families at a time, we were looking for, okay, what's making them so successful? And we found one common string. The girls were being participants just as much as the boys were. In other words, those Cub Scout leaders, those volunteers, and those Cub Scout packs made a way to serve the whole family, not just the boys. And so we really started looking at that and said, okay, well, what would that look like? And we started that conversation with first at just the executive staff level, people who were employees of the Boy Scouts, and said, okay, does this make sense? What would we have to really change, if anything, to allow girls to be recognized for what they're actually already doing with their little brothers? We knew that many girls and sisters, and I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I have a 14-year-old son. And I can tell you my daughter was with us at all of our pack meetings. She built a Pinewood Derby car. She did all these things too, but she was just kind of on the side and not able to fully participate. So in reviewing our program, we talked to educators across the country. We presented our program, the activities that Cub Scouts do, and said, does this make sense for girls and boys? And overwhelmingly, the educator said, absolutely. What you're providing is not gender specific. We know that the values of the Scout Oath and Scout Law are not gender specific either. Those values of being trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, those are just as valuable for a young girl to grow up into a woman of character as they are for a boy to grow up into a man of character. So now it's just a matter of mechanics. We are a volunteer-led, professionally guided organization, as I said before. So this was presented to a national board of volunteers who unanimously approved that this was the right direction for the organization to be able to serve the whole family. So there's options, which some people don't know because it's a kind of a detail. If you have a Cub Scout program now that is serving all boys, you can continue to do that. We're not forcing anyone to serve the whole family. Now, on the other end spectrum, if starting in 2018, if you wanted to have a Cub Scout program for all girls, you could do that too. Or we have a model that we call family scouting. You could have a family pack. And at that level, you would serve both boys and girls. However, you would have them divided by gender, by boys and girls, based on their grade levels. So all the first grade boys would meet as what we call a den, separately from all the girls that are in first grade in their den. So that at that level, we would have separation. And if you think of it like in school, most schools don't have PE together. Sometimes some schools you have all the boys go to PE at one time and all the girls go to PE at one time, or maybe it's health class. You have all the boys in the health class, everyone from all the girls. So there are times where it makes sense to have a separation between the boys and girls. But then once a month, they would come together as a pack. And when they go camping and other activities, they'd be all together as one big family. So I don't want to go too much further, see if there's any questions so far about that.
We do have questions. And our first question is from Amanda. What is the difference between Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, which is changing?
That's a very good question. Most people who are not involved in scouting don't know that the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are two totally separate organizations. We have similar foundings as far as the founder of the World Scout movement, his daughter started the Girl Scouts, and the Girl Scout movement grew and developed separately from the Boy Scout program. And so even structurally, they have a very different structure than the Boy Scouts do. And so although it does, because of the name, it really makes it sound like we're the same organization, but we're two very separate organizations. The Girl Scouts provide a wonderful, and they've been very clear that they want to remain a single gender program where they provide a program just for girls with female leadership. In Boy Scouting, for probably about, I'm going to say 30 years now, we have allowed leadership of male or female in our programs. And then we developed 20 years ago a co-ed program called Venturing that serves young boys and girls, or young men and young women, 14 to 21 years of age. So for 20 years, we've already been serving females, girls in that program. We just have had such a pull from our families that are in Cub Scouting and externally to allow girls to participate in Cub Scouts. So if you think of it this way, there's no reason why a girl can't be a Cub Scout and a Girl Scout.
That's pretty
Just
cool.
because you play baseball, it doesn't mean you can't play basketball.
Right. Interesting. Sullivan would like to know if you were an Eagle Scout.
I am an Eagle Scout. Usually when we say that, we don't use a past tense, because once you are an Eagle Scout, you are always an Eagle Scout.
An Eagle Scout.
So yes, I was in a great troop growing up and earned my Eagle in 1990. And a lot of people assume that to work for the Boy Scouts, you had to have been a Scout growing up or have had to have been an Eagle Scout. And really, that's not true either. We have a lot of excellent executive directors across this country who are female, who weren't Scouts growing up, either in Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. It's really just a different skill set. So
interesting. Austin would like to know what other types of new programs are in the works or activities.
So we are constantly looking at ways to be innovative, and part of that is how do we improve processes so that we can add new activities and events. So one of the things that we've been piloting, we have a shooting sports program where based on age, you're allowed to we have BB guns, and then we move up to 22s, and then we have shotguns. We have been testing air rifles and different types of air guns as well. All this is for target use. And the purpose of our shooting sports program is to teach the safety and to tell the difference between what is potentially a tool and what is a weapon. And that, if you think about it in modern society, right, most of us have this. If you aren't taught properly how to use this, we all have experienced, unfortunately, that this could be a weapon. And through cyberbullying or stalking or other issues that happen, but we have a responsibility to teach youth how to use this properly, because this can be very much a great tool, right? I can't get to work or my house without this anymore because I'm in a new city. If I want to know where I can go to eat, right? That's a great tool. It's a great resource, but it can also be, unfortunately, it can be a weapon in the hands of some who aren't taught properly. So, other programs that we're looking at in Cub Scouting, we are developing a way to develop what we're going to possibly call virtual adventure trails. Essentially, that would be awards and recognition that you can earn virtually.
Cool.
So you wouldn't have to necessarily go to a meeting. You log on to a site. You'd be registered Cub Scout, and all the instructions, videos, and requirements would be online. That's the only space that you could earn that recognition or that award. And then if we have a program that is successful, that people like, and they're using it in that arena, then we would incorporate that into our core program, which would mean that we would print that into our handbook. And then we look at our handbook and say, okay, what requirements or what activities are people just not doing because they're not interested, and remove those items and replace them with things that are more modern. So we can take advantage in that model of current trends and activities that youth like to do in America instead of guessing or assuming.
So over time, the badges that the Cub Scouts can earn change. They're not always
Absolutely.
the same.
Yep, and that's been true all the way through, and not only in Cub Scouts but in Boy Scouts as well. We have some core requirements that haven't changed over time because they're really morals and values haven't changed. To be trustworthy still means the same thing today as it did 100 or 500 years ago. You're either trustworthy or not. However, sitting around the living room and listening to a radio show doesn't connect with today's youth. That may be something that we would have done 70 years ago when there wasn't TVs in every household, right? And now today, even the similarity might be different, where so many people watch TV or watch media in different ways without using the TV. So making sure that sometimes the activity setting has to change, but the lesson and the value hasn't. And so it's just, how do we use the modern world to make sure we're enforcing those values?
That's pretty cool that it evolved.
Yeah, and in Boy Scouting, we used to have several merit badges that kids today, they really bookbinding. That used to be an important skill because you didn't have the internet, and if you were in a library, that was the only place where you really could find information. And to be a librarian, you also needed to know how to bind books, because books needed to be repaired, because there's no other way to preserve them. We don't live in that world anymore, so we don't have bookbinding anymore. What we do have is we have robotics, we have graphic design, we have computer programming, and we have game design. Those are the merit badges, type of merit badges we have in today's world.
So if somebody's interested in getting involved with the Cub Scouts, is it one of those that they sort of already know and then seek it out? Or do you do a lot of marketing and spreading of the word, and how things have evolved and changed?
Sure. There's two ways. We really have a great new, it's been out for about maybe 10 years now. We have one major website now that the national organization uses called beascout.org. So beascout.org. If you go to that website, there's lots of very general information about the age of Cub Scouting, the age of Boy Scouts, the age of venturing. You scroll down and you pick the program that you're interested in. You type in your zip code, and a map will populate for your zip code and show you all the different programs that are in your neighborhood. You probably will be very surprised that for Cub Scouting in your neighborhood, there's probably anywhere between 10 and maybe even 20 different Cub Scout packs that are in your local area. You can hover over each of one of those, and there'll be general information about who to contact, when they meet, where they meet. And then you can click interested if you want more information, or you can click right there and join online and start meeting with the pack whenever you're ready. So that's one way. The other method that we use a lot is we just go where the boys and girls are, which is in schools. And we have great partnerships with our school systems that allow us to do special presentations to let scouts or kids know that scouting is available in their area and how to join. One thing that people don't realize is that the Boy Scout program and the scouting program isn't designed to teach people to be outdoorsmen, to be great campers. That's not the idea behind the program. We are an education-based organization. So we actually have been able to prove statistically that those who are involved in scouting for 5 years or more, not Eagle Scouts, not the top, but if you were just in Cub Scouts for 5 years, high school graduation rate is at 93%.
Wow.
That's a national statistic. So if you think about, we're serving every neighborhood and every community across the country, and we're able to hold a graduation rate of in the low 90s for those who are involved for 5 years or more. That just proves that they're learning, they're developing a lifelong love of learning. One of the things I like to explain is in Cub Scouts, one of the most iconic things that if you were in Cub Scouts or involved in Cub Scouts at any time is the Pinewood Derby race. That's where we give you a block of wood, 4 nails, and 4 wheels. You get to carve that block of wood into a shape and design of a car. You bring it to a pack meeting, and you're going to race it down a track. And the track is just simply a hill. Well, we're teaching physics. We don't call it physics, but that's really what we're doing in first grade, because that's as early as you would start in our program. So in first grade, that child is learning about, if I make my car a certain weight, how fast is it going to go? And where I put the weight on the car, if I put it on the back or if I put it on the front, changes the way the car rolls down the hill. And as they get older, the next year, they're going to say, well, if my car weighed the same as my friend's car, but if my friend's car was faster, what was the difference? And then they start learning about friction. And that friction has a lot to do with the speed of the car. So all these concepts are the principles of physics. So when they get into high school and they are presented those principles in a formal setting, they have what we call recall. They have a hands-on memory that they can remember and relate to what is being taught in the physics class that makes them more successful in the class. And so that's just one example. And that's just one program or one activity we do in scouting that demonstrates that what we do impacts the value of that youth's education long term.
Sure. We have another question. Is outdoor activities, or I should say, are outdoor activities still important for the younger scout?
Oh, absolutely. Let's just think about what can happen in the outdoors, whether it be a hike or an overnight camp out. From an educational standpoint, you've got environmental science. You've got just the fact of being able to witness, not just in a textbook, but to witness, what does soil erosion look like? What's the impact of that? How powerful is the wind? All those experiences that are outdoors relate so much to science and the natural sciences. Then there's the practical part, the teamwork part. So in scouting, and we'll use Boy Scouts as an example. When you're in a Boy Scout group, you're in a small group of 7 or 8 called a patrol. And when you go on a camp out, the adults aren't cooking for you. You are. You're cooking for you. The adults don't buy your food for you. You buy the food. So you come together as a team before the camp out and decide, what are we going to eat? Who's going to cook? Who's going to clean the dishes when we're done? Right? So these are team building exercises that really have a huge impact. We just my son's in Boy Scouts, and we had a camp out just last weekend. And the young man who was responsible for buying the food didn't buy enough food. They won't make that mistake again. No one went hungry, but they weren't full. They would have liked more food. And so next time they plan their menu, instead of in their meeting joking around and not paying attention, they're probably going to pay attention more because they understand that this is kind of important. So the value of the outdoors is huge because we really do feel that there's no better classroom than the outdoors.
Hands-on takes us a long way. We have another question, and that is, what is the most challenging part of your day or in your job?
Probably the most challenging part of my job right now is the fact that even though I have an idea and I know that this is, because it's my idea, I think it's the best idea and this is what we should be doing. The fact is I'm part of a team, and that you can't just go off and do what you want to do. You really do need to check with everyone because at this level that I'm at has a national impact. So I really do need to check in with the people that is going to impact to make sure that perhaps there's something there that I'm not aware of, that someone else is, and says, hey, look, you're going to make this decision, but do you understand that by making that decision, it's going to cause us harm or it's going to make it more work for us? So in a way that for me, my challenge is not just being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I have to kind of go through a process. The previous position I had before I came to the National Service Center, my title was Scout Executive, which also means I was a CEO of the local council. And I had a little bit more autonomy and authority in that position. I still had a volunteer board that I reported to, but for day-to-day stuff, I could make the decision and it happened. I'm not in that kind of role anymore, so I have a lot more other people that I have to involve in a decision-making process.
Very interesting. Are there any religious connections with the Cub Scouts?
Oh, absolutely, and probably not in the way that you may think. So if you think about in America today, and what makes America such a fantastic place is the fact that we do have a diversity of thoughts and beliefs. In Boy Scouts and in Cub Scouts, we believe that faith in God is a very important aspect of someone's life. However, we don't interpret what that means. So we're not a religion. We don't interpret scripture. We do have a partnership that with an organization that and other religious organizations, like we have a National Jewish Committee on Jewish Scouting. Myself, I'm Jewish. We have a National Committee on Catholic Scouting, Baptist, and even Buddhist and Hindu. Just virtually every organized faith that you can think of, we have a national relationship with, because part of the Scout law is that you are reverent. And to be reverent, as we define it, has two parts to it. One is that you are faithful to your religious teachings and traditions, but you're also respectful of others who may have different views than you do. And I can't think of a more important value to be teaching in today's world than the fact that it's okay for someone not to believe exactly what you believe. It doesn't mean you can't be friends. It doesn't mean that you can't work together to accomplish great things. And respecting each other's viewpoints is a key part of being a scout, as well as fulfilling your own personal responsibilities in your duty to God.
So Keegan just asked, and Keegan, the first part of your question was just asked, but he would also like to know, will you deny a child of joining who has a different sexual orientation?
No.
That was an easy one.
That's easy. That's a straight out no. And that, I guess that's also one of the beautiful things about our most current decision to allow girls to become full members in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, is that we truly now are serving all youth and giving all youth the opportunity to experience scouting, and that's a great thing, I think.
Very cool. Now, with all the different sects, with having being connected with all the different religious organizations and whatnot, are there badges specifically for each, or the pool of badges?
That's a great question. Yeah, so the Cub Scout program and the Boy Scout program, we have a set requirements for rank advancement, and that's you may be familiar with those terms like Eagle Scout. Well, to be an Eagle Scout in California is the same requirements to be an Eagle Scout in Florida. The national organization, we set those standards of what that is and what those requirements are, and they're unbending, and everyone has to fulfill those requirements in order to earn that rank. We do have a partnership with several religious organizations for what's called the religious emblem. We have, for example, there's a religious emblem award that an individual scout of a faith could earn, and if he earns that, it's through his denomination, their church, synagogue, or mosque, and they can then there's a medal usually that organization creates, and they can wear that medal, and we have a patch that represents that medal that they can wear on their uniform. So we work with partners to provide that spiritual experience for individuals based on their faith, but we don't facilitate the religious experience.
Very cool.
I believe that answers the question.
It did.
And so one of the things that may also help explain this too, for those who haven't been involved in Scouts, is that you may see that a Cub Scout pack meets at a United Methodist church. Well, the reason why they're meeting at that church is because the way that we're structured as an organization is that we partner with local organizations to provide the scouting program. Some of those, the vast majority of those, are religious organizations. So churches, synagogues, and mosques sponsor, if you will, a Cub Scout pack or a Boy Scout troop. And one of their obligations in that relationship is that they provide a meeting space for them to meet at. We also have partnerships with the American Legion, Kiwanis, and Rotary, non-religious civic organizations and communities that provide Cub Scout and Boy Scout and venturing crew opportunities for the local youth. So that's why you may see in your local community, if you went to beascout.org, you may see that the vast majority of those meeting spaces are at churches. But that does not necessarily mean that that everyone in that pack or troop is a member of that church or even a member of that faith. My son and I are Jewish, and our troop meets at a Methodist church.
Cool. Are there any scholarships for high school students that are going off to college that were in the Scouts that they can apply for?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have a National Eagle Scout Association scholarship fund. So if you have been in Scouts and you've attained the rank of Eagle Scout, we literally have hundreds of thousands of dollars we give out annually in scholarships for that. There's several different awards that you can find at if you Google National Eagle Scout Association scholarships, you'll see the requirements for all those different ones. One of them is centered around the Eagle Scout project. So part of becoming an Eagle Scout means you have to create and lead a, a service project. And that service project cannot benefit the Boy Scouts. So you can't go to the Boy Scout camp and build picnic tables. It can benefit your school, a local park, anything that is going to be publicly facing. And usually those projects are very impressive. From building neighborhood parks from the ground up to creating, there was a program where an Eagle Scout created a program for Russian immigrants coming to the United States. So we have scholarships centered around your project. We have scholarships that are centered around academics. And then we have, what's really exciting is that we've actually partnered with the National Explorers Club, which is kind of a group of people who climb mountains and go to the deepest depths of the ocean and go to the Antarctic, where Eagle Scouts are picked annually to actually go on these excursions. So we have an Antarctic excursion where Eagle Scouts are selected to go to the Antarctic and do research up there. We have aquatic programs where they're actually going into submarines and doing aquatic studies in the depths of the ocean. And we've expanded the programs to believe, I also believe that we're doing some high altitude studies as well. So I can't think of any, probably about the only thing better than a scholarship is an experience of being able to say that I've been to Antarctica and I've done research with national scientists. That's pretty impressive. So you're going to find lots of other scholarships because of those opportunities. So yes,
sure.
So that's a long answer to a short answer.
That's pretty awesome. It's sort of like a spin on a summer program, so to speak.
Yes, they're intern programs with nationally recognized scientists. And it's because these scientists were Eagle Scouts themselves, and they understand the value of that, and they understand that, what they're going to be getting with a young person who's attained that rank, that they're getting someone who can be trusted, someone who isn't just going to, be, on their phone the whole time and not enjoy the experience.
It's important to step away from our phones.
Yes.
We have another question, and that question is, as a nonprofit, do the Scouts accept donations?
Absolutely. In fact, that's one thing that differs us from a lot of other not-for-profits that are out there. We are not funded by the government, either locally or nationally. Everything that we do financially is either self-funded or is through donations by individuals or corporations. The vast majority of giving in America is done by individuals. I believe the number is somewhere in the low 80s, so over 80% of all the dollars, the money that was contributed to not-for-profits last year was done by individuals, not by companies. And so there's a lot of individual wealth is what fuels charities like the Boy Scouts of America or not-for-profits like the Boy Scouts of America. Our structure, there's local chapters called councils that are funded through those type of donations. On the National Service Center, we're funded primarily through registration fees and national events and activities. We do have some national corporate partners that we've developed relationships with that provide very program-specific opportunities for Scouts across the country. For example, recently we just developed a partnership with Daisy Rifle. So Daisy Rifle is now the official BB gun of Cub Scouting, of Scouting. So those partnerships come and go. They're marketing opportunities for those companies, as well as opportunities for us to provide additional program to the youth we're serving.
Very cool and very interesting. If you have any questions, we are going towards the end. We'll be on for about another 10 minutes. 813-330-0176. Please text your name and question, and we would be happy to have them asked. I'm trying to think. What do you think in terms of age? Are you ever too old to become a scout? Like, I know you start at first grade, but if somebody's in high school and they're like getting interested now, is that too late?
No, it's not. So we have programs that we have a pilot program called Lions that starts in kindergarten that will be rolling out into the traditional Cub Scout program next year is our expectation. And then we have the after Cub Scouts is the Boy Scout program, which goes from 11 to 18. And then crossing over that, we have our venturing program, which is co-ed for young men and women currently, which is for 14 to 21. Now, to earn Eagle Scout, which most people are familiar with, you have to complete your requirements before you turn 18. So once you cross that threshold, you can't go back. And so we don't. It's something we work very closely with a lot of 17-year-olds to make sure that they're completing their final requirements before they turn 18.
Sure, I teach a leadership class, and in semester 2, they have a community service project that they have to do. And so I've had a lot of scouts who are actually in the middle of their Eagle Scout process, and I'm like, oh, well, you can use that. That works.
Perfect. That's excellent.
It's not exactly the small little project that they do.
Yeah, one of the things in the Boy Scout Advancement Program, which does benefit on in a career setting, is when you've completed the requirements for one rank. So there's, let's see, Scout, Tenderfoot, Second Class, First Class, Star, Life, Eagle. So there's 7 ranks. After you've completed the requirements for a rank, you have to go in front of what's called a board of review. And that's a panel of adults that kind of do a coaching session with you and share and kind of validate whether or not you're ready to earn that rank and start working on the next rank. Well, that's kind of like a job interview. Going and presenting yourself in front of individuals to prove that the work that you've done is worthy of being able to go to the next level. And so if you think about a scout in their career that becomes an Eagle Scout, they've been on 7 different job interviews before they've earned their Eagle. So when they go into a college interview or even after college or after trade school, an interview for a career, they've got experience. They've got years of experience of going in front of people and essentially, without being too boastful, selling themselves and saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I want to do.
Awesome, lifelong skills.
Absolutely.
One question that we have is, they know that Girl Scouts sell cookies and that the Boy Scouts sell popcorn. Why do the boys sell popcorn, and where do the profits go?
That's a great question. So the Girl Scouts, again, separate organizations, and this is one of those areas that there's a clear divide of how we're structured and how we're organized. The Girl Scouts actually own that brand of cookies. That's their product. Popcorn, we don't own. In fact, there are some areas in this country where Scouts don't sell popcorn. They sell something else. There's other products like beef jerky or peanuts, or some of them do Christmas trees. So there's a variety of that. So that's the big difference. From on the Boy Scout side, and I'll stick with how we are structured. If a Scout sells popcorn, which is a good example, when that Scout sells, let's say the popcorn costs $21. When you sell that popcorn for $21, $7 of that is going to that boy, that Scout. Gets $7. It goes to their pack or to their troop to spend on their programming and their experiences. $7 of that is going to the local chapter of the Boy Scouts. So that helps pay for things like their camp. Maybe they need new canoes. Maybe it's other program materials that all scouts in that area are going to benefit from. So over 70% of the money from that one sale is going to support local scouting. The remainder of that is the cost of the product. So yes, we know that when you buy popcorn for $21, popcorn doesn't cost $21. We know that. What you're doing is you're supporting scouting and you're supporting that individual and helping support scouting. And in return, you're getting popcorn, right? So that's kind of the best way to think about it. So that's kind of how we do our fundraising. And you can substitute popcorn with peanuts and beef jerky. Typically, the cut, that a third is about the same. A third of the cost of that is going to go right to that unit, to that pack or troop. A third of it is going to help support all of scouting in your community. And then a third of it is usually the cost of the product. So some Boy Scouts don't sell popcorn.
You mentioned about camps. Is there a camp in every state that Boy Scouts go to, or is it like other camps that you go to North Carolina or Georgia for?
So we have, so there's one National Service Center here in Irving, and then we have local chapters that we call councils that are responsible for providing the scouting experience in that local community. And that could be, for example, the Central Florida Council is headquartered in Orlando, but they cover the 7 counties of Central Florida from Brevard County all the way up to Flagler County on the East Coast, and then all the way over to Lake County on the west side. You're in Pasco County, so I believe that you guys are part of the Tampa Area Council. And so that council serves St. Pete and Tampa, Pasco, north and south down to, I think, like just north of Bradenton. And so usually that local council will have at least one camp. So we have 280 Boy Scout councils across the country. Each one of those probably has a camp of one type or another. So you're probably looking at well over 300 Boy Scout camps that are across the country. So, it's 6 per state. In some areas, of course, you're going to have a lot more. In Georgia, you have a lot more. And in the Carolinas, you have a lot more as well, just because there's more rural area there still. And the climate is really good all year long.
That is true. I've spent many summers in camps in Georgia. The nights are wonderful. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with our students and be a part of our virtual Great American Teach-In. Do you have any last remaining things to wrap up to close us out?
Well, again, thank you so much for letting me participate. I really did enjoy it. And those of you who are in high school and are looking at your next step for your career, I always encourage you to remember, I love what I do. I really do. And the reason why I'm in this position is because I enjoy what I do. So I actually listened to my high school counselor when talking about careers. They said, well, what do you like to do? And I said, well, I like scouting. And they're like, well, could that be a career? Yeah, it could be. But do what you like to do, find your passion. And that passion may not necessarily mean that you have to go to a 4-year university. That passion might be something that's a skilled trade. And right now, we're suffering from not having enough skilled trades, employees for skilled trades. So don't think that because what you like to do and what you want to do doesn't involve college, because that's not necessary to be successful in life. What's necessary to be successful in life is that you find your passion and you do it because you're going to be good at it. So think of it this way. There are plumbers who are millionaires because they love being a plumber and they're good at it. And so people hire them because they're good at it. But if you're an attorney because you think lawyers make a lot of money, but you don't like the work, you're not going to be good at it. And no one's going to want to pay you because you're not that good. So find that passion, find what you like, and talk to people who are in that field as much as possible to learn what it's really like. Unless you want to do what your mom or dad do for a living, it's really hard to know what a career is like without talking to someone who's actually in that career and getting to know them. So I'd strongly encourage that because that will save a lot of money and time for you down the road.
Definitely, and that's an awesome way to wrap us up. Thank you again for joining us. We very much appreciate your time. And tomorrow we will close out with our final session at 11 o'clock with a freelance writer, Yolander Prinzel. So we look forward to wrapping out our week. And Anthony, thank you again. We appreciate your time.
Great, my pleasure. Thank you.